Good morning. Namaskar. So, we are once again going through this same topic which we had discussed last time. Our speaker is the same. So, we will continue studying the book Ancient Wisdom by Sister Annie Besant. And the topic is Humans Ascent. This is the part 2 of the session which Brother Shikhar had discussed and elaborated various concepts. So over to Brother Shikhar to take us through the session. And I think we will have good time to discuss at the end of the session. Over to you, sir. And before that, let me chant the universal prayer. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. 1 minute silence. Come back. So I request Brother Shikhar to take us through the second part of the session.
Thank you, Sister Sabrina ji. So, yeah, you are also the co-host, so you can take care of the. Okay. So, good morning, and yeah, still good morning, even to all of our brothers and sisters joining from India and outside India. Also, I can see. Hello and welcome to this session. And as you know, we were going through the chapter 11 of the book Ancient Wisdom, which is the human's ascent. And I think, and we have reached to a point where she was talking about the qualifications to walk this path. There is a path, probationary path, and the path proper. And before we go into that, I just like to make this point that in the modern times, I think this has been the biggest contribution of theosophy in it, the field of spirituality, removing out the superstitions, that it has established the relationship between human, God, and universe. Because I think those who read the ageless wisdom scriptures like Upanishads or esoteric literature in different religions, they read it, but how many such people are there? And the language being Sanskrit or ancient, it's very difficult for people to understand. So gradually, this understanding, or at least intellectual understanding of this fact, has gradually disappeared from the collective subconscious of humanity. And that is why so many superstitions are there in the name of God or whatnot. And this is, I think, when we read theosophical literature or similar literature in which we read how what we consider ourselves is but just a fragment of what we really are. So how to realize that what we are? And is there a path, or is there a way to reach that destination? Of course, there is no final destination, but for each cycle of evolution, there is a destination. So that is the path that Annie Besant is showing to us through her words, which she has understood, and maybe she has gone through it to some level, that she is sharing in this book in a very precise manner. So we had come to a point last time when we did this chapter, to a point that the person who has decided, individual who has decided to walk this path, seeing the impermanence and perceiving the temporary nature of the things around oneself, and gradually understanding that the disappointments that we have in our life, the frustrations, the depression, the reason is not outside that we didn't get that thing, but basically we are trying to search for satisfaction in the wrong direction. We are trying to search for satisfaction in the unreal, which cannot and will not happen. Because imagine if it were to happen, if there was some such thing that would have given the ultimate bliss or peace to a human being outside, would there be any more need to go within? Or would there be any more need to for God or anything or something of that sort? No, because then that thing outside would become God, because that is giving me the peace and bliss. And that is why the pursuit of pleasure, pursuit of happiness has become such an important thing in everybody's life. But the only thing is we are searching it outside. And spirituality, or basically if we say science of consciousness, tells us that we have to find it within. So once the person is in that stage or state of mind, what happens? Is he alone or is she? Okay, I might be using the word he or she in the very normally, but we can think that he or she are, I mean, the same thing. We can talk of them as a one gender, no, without gender, genderless thing, because our individuality has no gender. So once a person walks on this path, is he left alone, or he has to do something from everything, all his by his efforts? So she says no. When this discrimination or discernment begins to develop, nature also helps. And nature helps the law, and nature helps through laws of nature, and also these uh, group of enlightened beings whom we know as the group of adepts who are managing the world affairs. They also help that individual. How? We will see later. But how does the nature help in this situation is that this discrimination of the individual is stimulated by the rapidly changing circumstances into which a disciple is generally thrown. Now, if we see this word thrown, we would feel like something that was not supposed to happen happened. Then how is this as per law of karma? Because suppose somebody wants to walk on this path, and as per this statement, it means a lot of things will start coming in that person's life, which maybe earlier was not supposed to, were supposed to in this life at least. So the purpose of these things are with the view of impressing on the mind strongly the instability of all external things. And this we can experience that you see the people, there are different people, maybe a person whose life goes so smoothly, everything is like, you know, looks secure, set. I mean, being born, good childhood, college, job, marriage, everything happy, and then retirement, and then peaceful death. From outside, it may look like a very, I don't know what, very a kind of life that everybody want to have. But from the spiritual point of view, it's a very uneventful life. Or from the learning point of view, because if a person doesn't have any challenge in the life to challenge one's thinking, one's values, then those values, those thinking, they do not become strong. And that is why, to make this discrimination, discernment of real and unreal and desirelessness stronger in the mind of the disciple, he is thrown in the circumstances. As she says, it's life. Generally, the life of a disciple is life of storm and stress, in order that the qualities which are normally evolved in a long succession of lives in the three worlds may in him be forced into swift growth and quickly brought to perfection. And that happens when I mean, we all have been through the college life and school life, and we realize okay, everybody is different, that sometimes we do not study as much throughout the year as we study 1 month before or 2 months before the exams are coming. What does it do? It concentrates all our energy to deal with a particular thing. And I'm not saying it's an ideal way of doing things, but only when we are put into this situation, then only we begin to challenge ourselves, to think, to question. And those, like the children who are from very early childhood, uh, you can say, suppose they lose the parents in the childhood, and sudden responsibility comes on their shoulders of the family from an early childhood. They learn things so quickly of the world many a times, and they evolve, they grow responsible in a very quick manner as compared to the other children of their age. So that's why that person is thrown into such kind of situations. But is it as per the law of karma? Yes, because law of karma is not a dead thing. It is a dynamic thing, which is, and we are modifying it, I mean, our consequences by each and every action, vibration that we are sending out in this world. So when we offer ourselves to walk this path, it is a promise to our higher self. And then the higher self itself, within the law of karma, for helping us, as we just read, for making our progress swift, start giving us the situations within the law of karma, which we were supposed, as she says, maybe all those karma we might have to face in the coming 10 lives or 7 lives, births, next birth. But when we walk this path, all of it is given to bear by us in this life. So it's like paying our debt quickly. If I have taken a loan from the bank, I have an EMI of 5,000 per month, and it goes on for 5 years. Suddenly, I get lucky, and my grandmother, or I got a lottery of something, big amount, and I want to finish that loan in the next month. So I pay all of it, and I finish the loan in that 1 month by whatever help that I received. So that's how. And what the purpose behind is, when we see things changing so fast in life, because that gives a sense of pseudo security. Why do we all think that people die? The normal age of dying is whatever, 80. 70, 90 or something, whatever. We actually, it is based upon it is our conditioning, which is based upon the place where we live. Maybe a place where there is the average death age is, let's say, 40, for whatever reason. Maybe it's a war area, it's a not so hygienic area where people die of diseases, or maybe it's some other kind of place. There, if somebody grows to 50, he will be like, a miracle or an exception. So these ideas that we form based on our surroundings, everything is conditioning, and we tend to fall in a pseudo sense of security that I am at least permanent till 80 years of age. But when things happen so quickly, it's like hammering the mind again and again, that like in one moment, this is the situation, and the next moment it's totally different. And then he begins to grow indifference to the presence or the absence of things which come and go. And more he fixes his aim on the changeless reality that is ever present. In the golden stairs, like the last line is, to keep our eye on that temple of divine wisdom. So the things are changing around us, but that is our task, to keep our vision on that substratum of consciousness which is always there, which is the changeless reality. And while he is gaining this insight and stability, he also works on the next qualification, which are called 6 mental attributes, which are which we read as good conduct at the feet of the master, or Shat Sampatti in Sadhan Chatushtaya by Shankaracharya. So before he enter this path itself, and it is not expected of a person to master these qualifications, but at least one should make a sincere effort and should have a sincere aspiration to have these qualifications, because by this gaining control over the thoughts and daily practice in meditation, gradually the modifications of the mind grows less and less, and which is very important for before entering the path itself. Why? She says, Annabesen says, better give a child dynamite as a plaything than place the creative powers of thought in the hands of the selfish and ambitious. It's true that because a power is a power, which is like a nuclear power. Nuclear power can be used for creating electricity and different kind of creative things that can be used for the welfare of humanity or for everyone. And nuclear power can also be used to create a bomb. So, and that depends on the head of the states. Somebody somewhere suddenly decides that as per their selfishness or ambitions that they have to do something, and they use the same power for whatever, for a destructive purpose. So the same thing applies to thought power. And we see gurus these days, books being written, that the thought is the secret, you can get what you want using the power of thought. But nobody tells what is behind that. Yes, thought is the power, use it, but if you're going to use it, you're going to have consequences also. Whatever we think for our selfish ambitions or for what, everything is going to have a consequence as per law of karma. So thought power can be used for the welfare of everyone, which includes us, or thought power can also be used for the negative purposes, only thinking for oneself, harming others. So that's why it is very important that a young disciple must add outward self-control to inner and must rule one's speech and actions as rigidly as thoughts. And she also says that often a good work is marred by the carelessness in this lower part of human activity, and the aspirant is bidden strive towards an ideal perfect in every part. She's also saying that sometimes due to misinformation or wrong information, people don't give as much importance to this lower part, our body. We have to take care also of the body and uh, thoughts and emotions. Or we think, no, I'm doing every day morning and evening meditation. That's enough in my daily life, in my relationships. I can continue with my usual habits. These things will become like a obstacle in his path, and he's bound to fail. And thirdly, she says the candidate for full discipleship seeks to build into himself a sublime and far-reaching virtue of tolerance. Now, this tolerance is not that kind of tolerance in which we kind of ignore others, but it is the quiet acceptance of each form of existence as it is, without demand that it should be something other, shaped more to one's liking, which is a constant factor in the friction two, between the two, between two humans, or basically humans, because humans want to make the other person as good as they themselves are. So that friction, that uh, even our subtlest emotions, when we say I love you to the other person, as we discussed many times, that there is always an asterisk mark there with conditions apply. That the person loves the other person only as long as the other person behaves in a certain manner. And if there is a deviation from that, that love begins to crumble. So that tolerance is a which we will see later. And why this tolerance? Because she says the drunkard, everyone, the drunkard learning his alphabet of the suffering caused by the strong lower nature, is doing as usefully in his own stage as is the saint in his. So that is very important to understand. We cannot undermine the effort of anyone in this evolutionary process. A child who is in grade 1 or grade 2 is making an equal effort to the best of his or her capability as a person who is about to graduate from college. As per their own state of being, evolution, they are having their challenges and they are dealing with it. So we cannot undermine anyone. So everyone is completing their lesson in Earth's school. One may be in, as she said, in kindergarten, and one may be graduate. So both are right for their age and their place, and should be helped and sympathized within their place. Now you may ask how a saint can be helped. Okay, a drunkard can be helped, or he can send good thoughts. Yes, the saints or people who are on a very high evolutionary state, they also need help. Why do you think the adepts wanted to establish Theosophical Society or some other similar institutions, organizations, to bring at least some of the human beings to that conscious level who can become their co-workers, because they also need people to lift the heavy karma of the world. So, like in a Jain religion, there is the prayer, no? That I'm forgetting that prayer, that they Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam. So, which means we are sending our good thoughts to them also, so they get the energy for their work also. And this is one of the lessons what is known in occultism as tolerance. The fourth is developing endurance. Endurance means cheerful bearing of all situations and resenting nothing, and going straight onwards without any deflection to the goal. That is very, very important. And I think if we only study the law of karma, we do not study anything else, the bodies, planes, or whatnot. If we only study law of karma and to its minutest detail, and with logic begin to apply it in our life, that nothing can come to person but by the law, and the person knows that the law is good, then most of the complaints, most of the resentments, frustrations, everything would just disappear, and the person will have the clear view of the destination in his mind. And he realizes that he's paying in a few short lives all the karmic obligations accumulated during his past. And the payments must be correspondingly heavy, as I just discussed by the way of example earlier. And this struggle in which he is plunged develop in him the fifth attribute, that is faith. Faith in the master and in oneself. That faith gives a serene, strong confidence, which is unshakable, she says. Why? Because the disciple learns to trust in the wisdom, the love, the power of the master, and is beginning to realize, not only to say that he believes in, that the divinity within his own heart, able to subdue all things to himself. And it's a very I would say, okay, it's a very happy coincidence that we see all these things in movies. No matter the movies are made in Bollywood or Hollywood or in which part of the world. In many movies, you see ultimately the character, they leave everything to divine plan and become selfless and love unconditionally, and then things go as per what is expected, even though in that sacrifice they have to do something which they don't want, but since they believe in that law, that whatever is happening is as per the law, so the final consequences. And even in the most we can say the materialistic world, or the materialistic approach, that value is still there, and that we can see in many Hollywood movies, that there are so many instances in those that inspire us to have faith. And once there is faith, the last mental requisite, that is balance or equilibrium, grows up automatically without conscious effort. And once she says, the very setting of the will, once we decide that we want to tread the path, it itself is a sign that our higher nature is opening up, and that the external world is definitely now the second priority. And this continuous effort to lead the life of discipleship gradually disentangle the soul from any remaining ties that may bind it to the world of sense, because of the withdrawal of the soul's attention from lower objects gradually exhaust the attractive power of those objects. And that's basically what happens in astral plane after death, that once The body is not there. The desire is there, but at least the contact is not there in a with the physical sense. So gradually those vibrations are exhausted. Thus he learns to move in the world without getting disturbed, without accepting or rejecting anything, with a balanced mind, even within the troubles and challenges of daily life. And once these 6 mental attributes in some measure are attained, that probationary disciple needs the fourth qualification, which is in At the Feet of the Master, we read it as love, but in the Sadhan Chatushtay, the text written by Adi Shankaracharya, he says, call it mumuksha. That is the longing for liberation. In a sense, it is love. Longing for liberation, liberation from conditioning, liberation from boundaries. And love is being unconditional. We cannot, although we keep saying to people, I love you and I love you, but if we go deeper, and also the former president of Theosophical Society, Dr. Radha Barnier once said that as long as I and you are there cannot be love. There can be affection, there can be attachment, there can be liking, and there will be moments of love when there is no I in the relationship. But those moments they come, they go, because we are again and again caught up with our I. So at this stage, the person is ready for initiation and ready to enter the stream. And this is what we just studied. She gave a list of those qualifications: Viveka, Vairagya, Shat Sampatti, and Mumukshatva. And the same thing she has written in Pali language. Viveka is Manodvara Jana, that is the door of the mind's opening of the door of the mind. Vairagya or desirelessness is Parikamma, that is preparation for action, means without attaching yourself to the fruit of action. Then control of thought, and the other, it's called Upcharo, and the other Sham, Dam, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhan, that is conduct, tolerance, endurance, faith, and balance, are the same words. And Mumukshutva, that is desire for liberation, is named as Anuloma. So then we come to the next part, that during the years that are spent in evolving all these 4 qualifications, there are other things also that will be going. As we know that he will be receiving help from the masters, the elder brothers, a lot of teaching, which not that he will be receiving some book in his hand or something like that, but during the sleep, out of the body, a lot of teaching happens when we are in that stage, through dreams, through visions, while we are asleep. And for that also, the astral body of the disciple should be well organized. And also he will have further training in meditation, and this effective practice outside the physical body will have quickened and brought into active exercise many of the higher powers. During such meditation, he will have reached higher regions of being, learning more of the life of the mental plane, and he will have been taught to use his increasing powers in human service. And during many of the hours of sleep for the body, he will have been working diligently on the astral plane, doing what? Aiding the souls that have passed on by death, comforting the victims of accidents, teaching those less instructed than oneself, and in countless other ways helping those who need it. Like I remember one instance that when C.W. Leadbeater was giving a lecture, and suddenly he got this vibe, this sense that somebody somewhere is going to commit a suicide. maybe I think it is one of the stories in Invisible Helpers book, that somebody on the ship was there who, who like took some money, or he committed a crime, some financial crime, or took some money which didn't belong to him. So then he realized that the captain of the ship is going to realize that, and then he will face a very tough time. So he thought to end his life. And C.W. Leadbeater, realizing this, threw his body on the couch, physical body, and in his astral body, he traveled to that person. And of course, the people on the right hand path do not impose their will on the others, which is the work of the left hand path. The only thing, even if we want to do good, if I want to someone to quit smoking, if I am telling him to quit smoke or forcing him to quit smoke, even in my thoughts, it is not the right way. The right way would be talking mentally to that person, telling him or her the good or bad things or whatever, if there are any, about that particular act, and then leaving the decision to that person. So he inspired that or influenced that person that committing suicide, will have so many effects, and instead if you tell the captain about it and face the consequences or whatever, he conveyed those vibrations. Then that person thought or felt that it has come from his own thinking. He went to the captain and told him everything. Captain was angry, but he was also happy that this person told the truth. So, okay, the things didn't go as bad as he had expected. So that's how on this path, a lot of work is given to the disciple, even in the sleep. And that is how the growth continues, other than this discernment, desirelessness, good conduct, and love. And what is the incentive of this when walking on this path? There has to be an incentive, no? When an individual soul is willing to take up the struggles of climbing the mountain through the steeper path, there has to be an incentive. That's what our mind tells. But what we are going to study may not be an incentive, but rather a very, it's like taking away even what we had left. And what she says, the disciple is offered the privilege. Now you see, it's all in our thinking. The same situation, somebody can take it up as an opportunity. The same thing somebody can look up as a disaster. So the disciple is offered the privilege of performing one of those acts of renunciation, time, which mark the swifter ascent of man. That is, he is allowed to renounce devachan. That is, we have studied normally the person after death, after the astral plane, goes into devachan and reap all the benefits of good thoughts and good deeds. But here, the priority is the evolution in the physical plane. So with the help of the nature and the master, if he thinks that I have done some work in this life, and if I go to Devachan for, let's say, 700 years or 800 years or 1000 years, the work that I was doing, which was left in between, will be lost. And if I continue the same work, I might, it might help in the evolution. So all of these masters and nature help, instead of going to Devachan, to stay in astral plane and take another birth. And what happened to that energy of good deeds? Since he is renouncing his fruit, the spiritual forces that would have been expended in Devachan are set free for the general service of the world. And this is another occult secret. People say, be selfless and do the acts of, welfare of everyone. But law of karma is law of karma. Whatever vibration is sent, whether from the center or without the center, even the divine will acting through somebody in a selfless person is an action. So what happened to those, the fruits, the consequences of that karma? That energy is spent for the general service of the world. The good consequences are distributed for the welfare of everyone. And that is why when we say that the balance is maintained in this world due to some good enlightened beings who imagine how much they are doing welfare just through without doing anything. And that disciple is led to a speedy rebirth on the earth. And this process can be done in one of the ways which people may not know of. They know the story behind some stories or instances, but the science is that his master, in this case, selects and presides over his reincarnation, and he guides that individual, the soul, to take birth in the atmosphere, in the situations conducive to his usefulness. Like we study many such things in Autobiography of a Yogi, or many disciples of Adi Shankaracharya, that like Hastamalak, he was a child till 10 years, he didn't speak anything. And people think he was deaf and dumb. But when Adi Shankaracharya came, and he completely changed. So similar such things. But there is also an occult process, because if every time that person has to take birth from the mother's womb, imagine, I mean, at least 15, 16 years, or at least so many 20 years, or till the person is ready to think for oneself, are lost. So basically, childhood for such kind of a soul is a waste, because he cannot do what they plan to do. So what is done in such cases, the masters keep looking for another person, like say another young person who is about to die, let's say at the age of anything 15 to 20, or whatever they think is okay. So that is his as per karma. So he is about to die. So when that person dies, leaves the physical body, then with the help of natural laws, there is no miracle, there is no breaking any laws. All of this is science, occult science. The masters help that soul to take possession of that physical body, which we think the person has just died. And then that person, is ready to work again, with, of course, such limitations of that physical body. And that we know a very famous story of Adi Shankaracharya entering into the body of the king to have that experience. So I'm not going into very much detail due to the limitation of time. So that is also one of the process. And that is also one of the reasons that the body people want to destroy, not people want to destroy, it is recommended to destroy as quickly as the person is dead, because many times the other people, like mischievous people, also try to make use of this process and do the negative things. So it is recommended that the body is cremated as soon as possible after death. And then she comes finally, with which we will end soon, the stages in this path. And when the person is ready for initiation, there are 4 distinct stages, and each initiation is accompanied by an expansion of consciousness. Now there are so many gurus everywhere giving initiation, and they give some mantra or something, but the real meaning of initiation is expansion of consciousness. Diksha in Sanskrit we call it. Diyate jnanam kshiyate papam. Through wisdom, the sins are destroyed. And the only sin is the sense of separateness. The sense of separateness is removed by the expansion of consciousness. So with every stage of initiation, the consciousness expands of the disciple. So when the chela has entered the path, the name given to that is the houseless man. In Hindus, it is called Parivrajaka, the wanderer. In Buddhist, the person, that stage is called Srotapatti, that the person who has entered the stream. And why? Because now he no longer, either if you say the houseless person means now he no longer looks at the earth as his home, because all homes that we make here, all houses that we make here are temporary. And similarly, Sotapanna means entering the stream of this ageless wisdom, that now sooner or later that person will reach the destination. After having received this initiation, there are three fetters, three chains that the person has to remove. And these three fetters, before he can go to second initiation, are illusion of personal self, doubt, and superstition. And if you want to read in detail about these, you can always read the book Masters and the Path by C.W. Leadbeater, in which he has explained a lot in detail about these. The personal self must be felt in consciousness as an illusion, basically talking about body, desire, and thoughts. So that it is an illusion, because not because it does not exist, but because it is not eternal. And then also doubt about, like, law of karma, the reincarnation, existence of masters, the person then should know as facts, not just intellectual discussion for the purpose of intellectual discussion. If we say law of karma exists, then we have to look each and everything, however big or small, through the working of law of karma, so that no doubt on these heads can ever again rise in his mind. Superstition is that once, basically, with every next step, the previous step we have to come up. So maybe what is sounding like truth today will look like a superstition tomorrow, because now we are at a higher ground. So the chela, the disciple, learns to use every means and bound by none. Then when the person has cast off these fetters, which may take several lives or maybe a single life, the next key of knowledge, that is initiation, is given. And then after that, third and fourth initiation. So the second stage is called, in Hindu religion, Kutichaka, that is, who builds a hut. Or in Buddhist, it is called Sakradagami, means the person who receives the birth but once more. In this stage, he has to bring into full working order the inner faculties, those belonging to the subtle bodies, all those riddhi siddhis that we talk about as miracles or something extraordinary, because he will need them for this service in the higher realms of being. But these are automatically, since now he's being selfless, so these things are offered, like to Annie Besant, Leadbeater, HPB. They all had these things, due to which they could write such books, they could do such research for the welfare of many. Then after this, the third initiation, to become the swan, the wondrous bird of life, whereof so many legends are related. And in Hindu religion, it is called the Hamsa, he who realizes I am that. And in Buddhist Pali language, it is called Anagami, that is the one who receives birth no more. And on this third stage of the path, the chela casts off the fourth and fifth fetters, which is desire and aversion. There are also something known as Panch Kleshas in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Avidya, Rag, Dvesh, Abhinivesh. Avidya, Asmita, Rag, Dvesh, Abhinivesh. So they are quite, with have a lot of similarity with that. And desire and aversion, rag and dvesh, because now he looks on all with an equal eye. That tolerance that we talked about earlier now has to, has to bloom completely. And he becomes a friend of every creature. Vishwamitra, Vishwamitra, who is a friend of the world. And then in the fourth, as a living embodiment of divine love, now he passes swiftly to the fourth initiation, which is beyond the personal. That is, the Hindus call that Paramhamsa. The Buddhists call that Arhat. That is, the worthy, who is eligible. And here, that individual remains at his will, casting off the last fine fetters that bind him with the thread, however fragile, which is called Ruprag and Aruprag, that is clinging to life in form and longing for formless life. These are all the chains, and he must be chainless. And the attraction of higher words is much, much more stronger as we read than we have here. So, and then mightiest of all achievements, that he cast off the last fetter of separateness, the I, ever making faculty, ahamkara, or also known as pride, man, thinking oneself to be apart from others. And then basically it means the person is now touching the Buddhic plane consciousness that we study in theosophy, where unity of all life is realized. That is the universal brotherhood, sisterhood, siblinghood, whatever name we want to give it, that is realized, which is the first object of the Theosophical Society. And then once that is done, this faculty is born with the soul, but the soul took all the coverings. Now it has taken all the experience. Now it has become consciously pure, and all that essence is given to the monad, and all those lower vestures are discarded, are dropped. And in the realization of this unity, that ignorance, avidya, that is the first illusion and the last, falls away. And the human being is then perfect and free. And thus he comes to the ending of the path, so to say, relatively. In other words, it is the beginning of another path. That is the threshold to nirvana. And that is nirvana, that state of consciousness. Gradually, now once he crosses that threshold, the nirvanic consciousness becomes his normal consciousness, and that is called Jivan Mukta, Jivan Mukt in Hindu religion, or Ashik, that he who has no more to learn. He has completed human's ascent. He has touched the limit of humanity, and the crucifixion in flesh is over. That crucifixion, HPB also writes, what we look at as a story that happened to Jesus, actually that was an allegory of his inner journey, which is now what we see in a different way. And then he reaches in that eternal light, the mysteries of which he anyways says we know not. And dimly we feel that supreme self is found. So now, as I said, whether we call it an ending of the path or the beginning of the path, Theosophy also tells us, unlike other religions, that at this stage, the seven paths open up in front of that soul, or the individual, from which he or it can choose. And so because people normally think that after reaching to nirvana, that person is gone, never to come back, but she says no. He stands again on the threshold of nirvana, himself seeming the very embodiment of light, but now his face is turned to earth, his eyes full of compassion on the wandering sons of men, and he cannot leave them comfortless. Just like Buddha did, he took a vow that he will not go into nirvana until as long as the last person is suffering on the earth. So he returns to the earth. The master devotes himself to the service of humanity with mightier forces at his command now than he had while he was walking the path of discipleship. And he has dedicated himself to the helping of humans, of everyone, and he bends all the sublime powers that he has now for the quickening of the evolution of the world. And that's what happens also. We know that on Buddha Purnima, the Buddha full moon, when he appears, basically, he is giving the blessings. Of blessings means the vibrations of that sort, which, and he himself acting as a transformer, because directly those vibrations would be of no use to us, but through him, he sends for the welfare of every person. And there are similar other events also that in different religions are related to certain astronomical planetary combinations. He once, now he's in that stage, he pays to those who are approaching the path the debt. That's why the masters, very often we read, they say that humanity has a right over them because they have evolved themselves. So they say that it's their duty to help humanity, but only to those who offer themselves to be helped. And he guides, helps, and teach them as he was guided, helped, and taught before. And such are the stages of man's ascent. Such goal is what humanity is climbing, and to such glory shall the race attain. And I would like to, and with this PowerPoint, I would like to end this. These are the PowerPoints made by Brother KVK Nehru. And is it this one? Yeah. Can you see the full screen, Sotalina ji?
I cannot see the full screen. I'm only seeing your folder.
Okay.
Maybe it's slow.
Okay, I know. I think something is wrong in this. Anyway, it says that all these are the stages and of the evolution, and it is not that the path ends with this, as there is stages in the discipleship after becoming the initiate, after following qualifications for initiation. Then there is Srotapan, or entering the path, Saktagami, Anagami, not once returning, non-returning, Arhat, Asheka. That is, and that's why Asheka is the fifth initiation. Also, the five-pointed star that we see is a symbol of an adept who is working seamlessly on all the five lower planes. And after that, the sixth initiation are called Chohans. Then seventh are called Mahachohans. Eighth initiation is Buddha. Ninth initiation is the Lord of the world. 10th initiation is the Silent Watcher. And beyond that, Dhyani Chauhans and the seven great spirits, all coming from the sun. So that's what the whole journey is about as we study, and those of us who are interested in walking that path. So once again, the relationship between a human, God, and universe. They are not different. They are not outside, inside. Basically, it's the same thing. And very often what we see separateness is what we call illusion. It's just like there is a bulb, light bulb we switch on, And if we put on a piece of cloth on it with various holes, what will happen? The same light that was coming from the bulb will now start coming out in the form of rays. So what would we call it if we call those rays a separate entity than that source or the light that was before? The only thing is, due to that veil that we call Maya or the matter, it seems that these are separate rays. And this veil can only be removed by the realization of that consciousness going beyond the veil. That is, once we go to the source, that veil is removed, and then there is no more different rays, it's only the light. So with this, I rest my voice. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. You made it so simple for us. The kind of examples you quoted, so much of practical aspects. Me and Pranchi were just discussing, like, be it the example of the invisible helper, somebody not imposing thoughts, but sending thoughts. Actually, it's very different. We tend to impose thoughts on our kids, with our colleagues, with our partners. That is the biggest learning I had. As a habit, I used to probably impose thoughts in some situations, which I will now take some precautions. Not to speak is very difficult. But that's again a temptation, that's again a desire, right? Okay, and the other aspect towards the end, which I realized, I'm just sharing my views and I'll welcome others to share their thoughts. Towards the end, a very spark of thought came to my mind. We are like those bubbles in a huge ocean, or maybe a little pond, or in a bucket of water. Wherever we are in our own space and time, as bubbles, we are very part of the ocean or the large entity. Subconsciously, consciously, unconsciously, we are there, but we don't take efforts. But gradually, when we burst and we mingle with the rest of the bubbles, we're actually the whole. There's such a thin layer which has kept us as a shadow on us, and actually we are truly what we are. We don't realize. That's why we think different. I'm a separate bubble. Shikhar is a separate bubble. No, we are all of one. This is the thought just came to my mind. And let us keep exploring and realizing. Yes. It was amazing. It was amazing a session, Shikhar. Thank you so much for giving us such beautiful thoughts in the early morning of a Sunday. You made a week, made a month, made a years to think through it. So I welcome others. Whatever thoughts came to your mind, please share so that we'll help each other at least by sharing our thoughts which we absorbed while listening. Or if you have got any personal experience, you may share, because many people have personal experiences too. If you think you can, I think we'll do it only for 5 minutes. We're already the closer of the session.
Yes.
So anyone who's interested,
at least if anybody is interested, please go through this book and Masters and the Path, and At the Feet of the Master. Those who are new, you'll find a lot of valuable information related to daily life and what we have just studied. So in your free time.
Yeah. So maybe Ganesh ji, Rajiv ji, Vasumati ma'am, anyone who has done a good study and practice can share some light to all youngsters like us.
Thank you so much, Shikhar ji. There was a lot of learning today, in the sense, all the time, I was under the impression that communication happens more through words and physical communication or through our actions. But even communication can happen through our thoughts and sending vibrations.
Yes.
That was a very great learning today. So thought travels in space and they vibrate. And that was a very important learning for me today, Shikhar ji. And I have a doubt also.
Yes.
Like when you said that if it is even a first standard child or even a person who is graduating, everybody are, they are showcasing their own capabilities at whatever level they are in. sort of, whether a little child or whether a college going student.
Yeah.
But then my doubt is, in the real world, isn't it important for a child who is also on the first standard or UKG, or say even on the 10th standard, to maximize his or her potential? So is there a difference between potential and capability? Is everybody maximizing their potential? So how do we look at it?
How do we know that they are not?
By the results that they show.
No. See, results are very, I think the results are, now we are all beginning to know that you cannot check all the students from the same guideline, every child is different. You cannot compare. That is the whole crux of theosophical education, that every child has a talent. And as a parent, as an educator, our whole purpose should be to help to bring out that talent, rather than forcing that child to become what we want him or her to become as per the societal standards. You cannot judge an artist with how good he is in mathematics, or you cannot judge a mathematician child with how good is he a painter. So, okay, that's another set of things. But here, even if you want him or her to learn something, the reference that she's saying, Annie Besant is saying, that everyone is doing their own best effort, means we should not judge anyone. That is for, let them do whatever their effort, and if we are in charge of some student or a child, we should help that child, not judge that child. Because normally what we say, when I was of your age, I was like that. I was, see the children of the next door neighbor, how good they are. When I was your age, I was getting gold medals and you are doing nothing. But we don't know that child. We are judging that child from our background, from our state of mind, which we have. Actually, we are being very cruel to that child, because we don't know. For that example, J. Krishnamurti, he failed. He couldn't pass any exams. His brother Nityanand, he went to Oxford and all those big university in which Annie Besant wanted them to go, but Krishnamurti just couldn't write the exams. So do we think he was a dumb person who didn't know anything? No, but his ikigai, or his inner thing, was something different. And now we have schools built up on his philosophy. So the only thing here to say is, let us not judge anybody, whether it is a criminal or a saint. We should only look how we can help them in what they have to become. That's all. But of course, that is my understanding. People may think differently on this. If anyone has to say anything. Thank you, Gomti ji.
Thank you, Shikhar ji.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else would like to add something, or we would go ahead with the closing prayer?
And also, Gomti ji would be taking about thought power in the coming sessions in April. Yes. She will be even more sharing more things. Yes.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah.
Learning a lot.
Sessions are getting very interesting with these practical thoughts, practical discussions. Yes. Anyone else would be interested to share a few words? Dr. Kevin Lawrence, hello. Yeah, you can go ahead.
I spent some time, I was in the process of so I would like to share one of my personal experiences where I heard a voice or something. I was in my 11th standard. I was in my PU. I was in a boarding school somewhere around 300 kilometers from my home. I used to be very homesick when I was in boarding. So that's when I around this is the time when I was more spiritual, and I was more spiritual in my life. I started practicing yoga and things. So once I was I felt so homesick. So I cried to my vice principal. I told him I want to go home like that. So he was like looking at me, this guy is crying, we will leave him home. Basically, they won't make us go home. Like they will make us go home like once in 4 or 5 months. And there are I studied in Namakkal, like 11th, 1,000 people will be there in 11th standard, 1,000 people will be there in 12th standard. So when one guy get permission for leave, like around 10, 15 guys will take permission and go. This was a situation. So they tried to give us less leaves as possible, but something happened. I cried or something, and I went home. So I didn't book any train ticket or something. So I left from my school like around 2, 3 o'clock. And my sister called me. I called my mom, and I was speaking with my sister. My sister is 9 years younger to me. 10th standard. When I was in 11th standard, I think she was in second or third grade. She told, brother, I want watermelons. I'm like, watermelons? She told those during that time, we had this small watermelons, like the full green one. So I didn't, they were selling it in our school. So I didn't know what to do. I don't know how much they weighed also. I just put, I think around 3 or 4 in my bag. I just bought 3 or 4 watermelons from my bag. I already have a backpack. Plus the bag which I'm carrying, it was so heavy, but I didn't realize. So I catch my bus, I went to the railway station, and they told the train is cancelled. And I was like, man, what I will do? We don't have phone in our boarding schools. Like, so if I used to ask people to give their phone to call my parents. It used to be like that at that time. So when I got to know my train was cancelled, I was not able to get a phone to call my parents. So I was totally blank what to do. Then they told I should from Coimbatore to Chennai I should come, like a stop before Chennai, and I didn't know what to do. Then I called my dad somehow. My dad told, it's okay, whichever train comes next, you just come in it. We'll take care. I didn't have what to say. I didn't have money. I had ticket for the other train, but I didn't have the like. I had very little amount of money. Then I got a train, and it doesn't go to my hometown. Like that, I switched like around 2 or 3 trains, and finally it didn't. The last train, I am supposed to get off before a stop before Chennai, but that train was not supposed to stop in Chennai. During all of my travel, during the entire scene, I was like, God, please help me. God, please help me. Go home. This was the only thought in my mind. Okay. So the train was stopping not stopping, it was slowing down in my station, like around 12 or 12:30 in the night. It was I still remember the day. It was a full moon day. It was slowing down. I could have got down if I didn't have the luggage with me. Like I could have, like, when you jump from a moving train, you should be able to run. Otherwise, you'll fall down. So I knew if I jump now, I cannot run. So it is impossible. So I was like, God, stop this train now. I need to go home. It crossed my hometown. The train starts in Chennai. We have unit trains like around every 4 to 5 kilometers. Then unit train starts. Then I was like, God, do something. My home has gone. What I will do? And after 2 or 3 unit trains stopping, the train like stopped. I'm like, oh, thank you, God. I like got down from the train and I started walking. So I have to get a unit train. Either I have to go like this or I have to go like this. It's total darkness and there is no street light or whatsoever. There are no houses. I think this side was some lake or something. This side was like open ground. I was not scared. Like the only thought in my mind, God please save me. God please save me. That was the only thing in my mind. So I had to choose either to go this side or that side. Both side I had lights, like white lights. So I was like thinking, so either one must be a unit station. If I go to either one, I'll catch a unit train. So I was thinking I'll go to the shortest light. Okay, and then I started walking like around 2 kilometers in that direction. Then I came to know that white light was not a station. It was a goods train which was coming really slowly. And the driver in the goods train was like looking at me like, what is this guy doing here like in the middle of the night? And I was like, oh, he didn't stop it or anything. It was moving slow. Then I went the other way. While I was the goods train went, I was but going the other way, like this voice came to me, Kevin, don't turn back. whatever happens, don't turn back. I'm like, okay. And I'm walking, I'm hearing really creepy, weird sounds. Okay, really weird sounds. I was in 11th standard. I was, like I'm like, God save. And the sound is getting closer to me. Like, people wear uh, anklets ka sound, and other laughing sound, so many things. It was a full moon day, and I'm carrying this bag with watermelons and all, and I'm walking. And I think at last I reached my home like around 2 or 3. My mom was like, "He was about to beat me. Why are you traveling in night on a full moon day? It is not good to." No, I think it. No, I don't think it is full moon or a half. It was a full moon day, but she was telling, "Don't walk in times like this, like that." But I still remember hearing that voice, "Kevin, don't turn back." Like I don't know what would have happened at that time if I turned back. But as sort of like hearing from voices and people helping us, I think if we should ask first, so that we should keep asking if we don't receive. I didn't ask for anything else. I just wanted to go home that day. So I think they helped me with that. So yeah, this was my personal experience. Just wanted to share these things. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kelvin. Yeah, we all have our personal experience, which we that time do not realize, but later on, when we explore, when we start thinking seriously, we get a message. That's to cut the story short, and we will look forward to such discussions when in our next sessions when people really come up and share things. It's already late, so I will be closing the session with the closing prayer. Shikhar, or do you want to announce something else? Okay, fine. So let's take a couple of seconds silence to absorb what we learned. Whatever the single learning we could absorb. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukhavag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.